Congresswoman, you are known for your colorful way of saying things. And after the election, you had said that when it comes to your own party, you've compared Democrats to the guy who only calls after midnight. What did you mean by that?
You know what she
I know what she meant by that.
You up? Right, exactly. Listen, I mean, here's the deal. There are so many people that get frustrated, especially within the Black community. It's like you show up to, when you go into church and the politicians that are, it's election time, right? Yeah. And so instead of continuously engaging in communication, as well as listening, right? Don't just show up when you need something. Show up and show me that you're here to serve me as well. And for me, it's about staying ready so you don't have to get ready. If I gotta get there and it's the last minute and now I gotta tell you everything that's happened, I've already lost. I'm behind the gun. So for me, I think that the better route is to keep an open line of communication going consistently.
With the vote.
It is quite easy to get under Donald Trump's skin, but to live raunchy in his head is a completely different thing. Something that has been accomplished by Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Only in her sophomore year in Congress, but already such a superstar in our party. And a comment that she made today on The View, calling out Donald Trump's very clear cognitive decline, has obviously set him off and has set off Carolyn Leavitt because she melted down over it in her press conference. We're going to get into it all, but before we can see Leavitt lose her mind, of course we have to start with Jasmine Crockett. Her on The View right here.
Over the weekend, we actually saw a tragic and brazen act of political violence in this country. A Minnesota Democratic representative and her husband and their dog were assassinated. Another lawmaker and his wife were gravely wounded. And the suspect reportedly had a long hit list. So I want to ask you, do you feel safe as an elected official in this political climate?
No, not at all. I mean, here's the deal. I do this job and the fact that my safety is a part of doing this job is really bad in and of itself. Yeah. But while we spend millions upon millions just so that this guy can go and golf, or while they spent $45 million for his little birthday parade, I'm just saying, can we reprioritize some of those dollars? When they killed our continuing resolution this last time, one of the things they didn't take out is that they had included an additional, I believe, $10 million to protect non-justices. I'm like, listen, I'm not even asking for $1 million, but can we get something? Because we have nothing. The only people in the House that have protection, you get protection based upon your leadership post. That's it. Those are the only ones. And so when you figure out security, you have to hopefully raise enough money to then be able to pay for security yourself. This is a problem, especially in light of the environment. And so I did text a Republican that I consider to be a friend. Yes, I have Republican friends, just so y'all know. I did, and I said, listen, your people need to fix this. I'm tired, right? And there are Republicans that are concerned. And to be clear, they're not really concerned about the radical leftists that they talk about. They're concerned about MAGA. Because we saw the same thing happen when we had the speaker election, right? And so when people were mad about them not voting for Jim Jordan, they started threatening their spouses and all kinds of stuff. And another thing that they're not talking about that really ticked me off, because I just learned about it in the midst of what happened, is that someone has been sending pizzas to members' homes. And they've not done anything. So I'm just we still have a role to play. I get that nobody really likes the Congress, but I mean, we still are duly elected and we're a co-equal branch of government, but we always seem like we're the stepchild.
Well, it makes it even more irresponsible that a president would come for, as you said, a sophomore member of the House.
Exactly.
Congresswoman, I'm going to quote you here. You have said that what Democrats need and want is the safest white boy we can find. For the 2028 presidential ticket. And you implied there already is an heir apparent that donors are lining up behind. Who are you talking about?
I'm not going to tell you, Joy. Listen, so what I will tell you is that I was asked about that by Clay, and Clay, the phrasing of the, Clay Kane, the phrasing of the question made it go that way, because it was more so like, do you think Black voters or any voters are going to be okay with going with a woman or going with a person of color based on what happened last time? And my philosophy is that the people want a fighter. And I don't think that it really does matter their color or whatnot, but I think the donor class, actually I've been told that the donor class is lining up. So I was really kind of laying out that there are differences, but I think the people will win. And I was recently reminded that there was a young junior senator out of Illinois.
Yeah.
That was not.
He wasn't supposed to win.
He wasn't the one, but the people. The people picked him
twice.
And so
Iowa first.
Yeah.
So I do think that there is a lane. The reality is that Barack Obama was like the poster child for these small dollar donations, the grassroots donations. And so as we talk about like the donor class, like if we, the people, say we are the donor class, then we can make anything happen with our $5 and $10.
Jasmine Crockett is spot on. Donald Trump is sick in the head. And if you wanted to support a deportation plan that had the express purpose of acting as cruel as possible while ripping families apart, attacking people who came to this country to work hard and embrace its values of supporting freedom and the dignity of work, if you support Donald Trump, you're a little sick as well. I don't think that that's a crazy claim to make, and I know Carolyn Leavitt didn't feel that way. It's probably because she's in a cult, but let's hear her meltdown and respond.
Really quick on Jasmine Crockett, she said, I believe that Trump supporters are mentally ill before calling for bipartisan support against the president. Can you respond to that, especially considering she's a rising star in the Democrat Party right now?
She is a rising star. It's quite something to behold, actually. I hope that she continues to be a rising star for the Republican Party, at least. I think it's incredibly derogatory to accuse nearly 80 million Americans of mental illness. The last time I checked, Jasmine Crockett couldn't dream of winning such a majority of the public as President Trump did. And the America First movement, which President Trump has built, is filled of hardworking patriots, the forgotten men and women, business owners, law enforcement officers, nurses and teachers, and middle America, as we all know, from where you all grew up, outside of this beltway. That's who makes up this president's movement. And Jasmine Crockett should go to a Trump rally sometime and she can see it for herself. Jennifer.
It's always so condescending from Carolyn Leavitt. Gosh, she's just also not a very good liar. She isn't good at it. But they always take this high horse. Oh, the Democrats speaking down on Trump voters. They hate our country, don't they? Ooh, Jasmine Crockett. She must hate our country. I don't know why is that? My Caroline Leavitt impression, I don't know. That's my pearl clutching. Donald Trump went to Fort Bragg, a military base, and got these soldiers behind him to boo the entire state of California and his governor and their mayor. So when we see this pearl clutching of, the small town in Mississippi that voted 95% for Trump, and now they're losing their Medicaid, and they're losing their SNAP benefits, and we're kind of laughing, and we're like, well, Carr, and it's like, oh, these Democrats, they look down upon us. They hate America. Republicans are constantly calling the biggest, most beautiful cities of New York, Chicago, LA, garbagger-ridden trash towns. We hate America. You hate the states and cities that fund your lifestyle. Red states, by the way. I know math isn't really taught there, but California is giving you money. Maybe that should compute, but it's not going to be giving you much money anymore because of Donald Trump's budget. Which Jasmine Crockett called that right here.
Today, new polling from the Washington Post and Ipsos shows that Americans oppose the plan 2-1. It turns out cutting taxes for the very wealthy and for big corporations while cutting health care for everyone else is not very popular. And if you were hoping the Senate would moderate the worst impulses of the House Republican caucus, I got some bad news. As it turns out, the Senate version of the bill cuts more from Medicaid, imposing even stricter work requirements than the House bill. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's a Democrat of Texas. She's running to serve as ranking member of the Oversight Committee, and she joins me now. Good to have you here.
Good to see you.
Let's start with the polling because it strikes me as both sort of encouraging for those opponents of the bill, also a huge messaging opportunity because a third of people don't have an opinion of it. So you've got 23 support, 42% oppose, 34% no opinion. What does that say to you?
Yeah, it says that we still have a lot of work to do as it relates to kind of getting the message out. I do appreciate the fact that we've had some time, which is something that we didn't have when we went through the continuing resolution fight that we had, where who sent out a tweet and all of a sudden a bill went kaput. And so I do appreciate that we're kind of getting through it, but you're talking about pages and pages of legislation. And then you have, the Trump administration throwing things out like, oh, we're not going to put a tax on this, so you should love it. But they're not telling the other side of the story. Like, at the end of the day, would you rather have a tax bill that may be $5, less that you're normally keeping in your pockets, but you don't have this crazy random healthcare bill?
Right.
Probably so, right? Like, and the reality is that people are going to die. Listening to the stories of people that literally have only been able to live because of Medicaid, it's heartbreaking. And the fact that we're talking about rich people just keeping more money in their pockets while literally other people are going to die, it sounds anti-American and definitely sounds anti-patriotic.
So one of the things that generally when I've covered big bills in domestic policy in DC, there's this idea of like the Senate is like the cooling saucer, and that, and that usually things come back from the Senate like more moderate, but both on the left and the right. That is generally the way things go.
Yes.
It seems to me like Ron Johnson and the sort of right-wing faction in the Senate is actually pushing to make this bill more aggressive on the cuts side. And I'm wondering if you were anticipating that, or if you thought you were expecting a more moderate bill.
No, I was expecting the Senate to fix everything. I mean, I was expecting it still to come back as a bad bill, but we're talking about
You thought it would get better.
Correct. I thought it would get better. We're talking about a bill that only made it through the House by one vote.
Right.
One vote. So literally it's like two people went AWOL, right? And another two Republicans voted with the Dems, and then another one just said, listen, I'm just going to white light this, or, vote present.
Yeah.
And so I expected in the Senate, especially because, think about it this way, our congressional districts are approximately 766,000 people. And so literally there are some Republicans that don't have any hospitals whatsoever in their districts. But then you start talking about the Senate, every single state senator has hospitals. And when you start to talk about rural hospitals possibly shutting down because they don't have enough funding, because you're now cutting this Medicaid funding and they can't supplement because they don't have all these other people coming in with, say, private insurance, I thought that the senators would say, listen, we can't do this.
Well, it's funny you say that, because one of the things, my understanding, again, the details here get a little complicated, but there's this mechanism called the provider tax, which actually would hurt hospitals.
Yeah.
Let's sort of do the short version that way. They're trying to squeeze more revenue. My feeling always, when I used to cover Congress day in, day out, was that the hospitals were big interest groups.
They are.
They will drop money on your head if they don't like it. They will be up in your office.
Yes.
Where are the hospitals? Honestly, it's wild to me that they have not shown up in a big way.
I don't know.
To fight this bill.
I have no idea. I mean, it's kind of like you saw the farmers, right? Like when we were going through that, like, continuing resolution, the farmers were like, wait a minute. Like, they showed up, like the Farm Bureau was like, we are here, right? And so it is odd, because the hospital lobby is a really big lobby. And a lot of people probably think of lobbies and they think, oh, you're going to be the antithesis of me. But when you're talking about rural America, like, I lived in East Texas. Let me tell you, hospitals are shutting down. And in rural America, you don't have as many providers either. And so literally, if you have this specialized cancer, you can't stay at home. You've got to go somewhere else, because there's no one that knows about the help that you need. So it is really odd. And I tell you this, that there's going to be more hurt that comes to red states than blue states. Blue states can actually take in a lot of this. Not to say that they should, and not to say that it's right, but like, it will be
disproportionately red states will get hurt by the Medicaid cuts in both these versions of the bills.
Yes, absolutely.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who is from the state of Texas, thanks so much.
I do want to feel bad for people who will be losing their health care, people who will be losing their SNAP benefits, people who will be less safe, and then, of course, less free. I think it's important to talk about how Donald Trump does make you less free. But you did vote for this. Not you and I, obviously. But they voted for it. This is what you wanted. And Tim Miller over at the Bulwark JVL talks about this as well. If you guys are big Bulwark subscribers, that may be for too long, the padding of the federal government, and the donor states like California and New York have allowed red state voters to get away with their bad votes. Right? We've kept them a little bit too safe from themselves, that there's been a lot of F around not a ton of find out that they haven't connected the dots that Republicans are the ones hurting them, that the billionaires who fund the campaigns of the people they elect are actually the ones holding them down. But if there was anyone who was going to teach you that lesson, it would be this administration. I don't think you're going to enjoy it, but hopefully it changes your mind, because we can't keep living like this, but we're going to do our best to point that out, call that out, and report on it on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.